Have you ever stood at a crossroads in life where darkness surrounded every path and wondered if you were strong enough to move forward? In a small place called Black Hollow, people who seemed weak faced darkness 100 times greater than themselves, not only the enemies outside, but also the fear, doubt, and deep hurt in their souls. That night, as the dim lights of the train station glimmered in the thick darkness, Ethan Kane stood alone, knowing that the biggest storm of his life was approaching. But instead of trembling, he chose to stand up. Not because he was not afraid, but because he knew that behind him was a community, a family, and a hope that he could not abandon. In that moment, Ethan understood. Darkness is not an enemy, but an opportunity for our light to shine the brightest. The story of Black Hollow is not just a battle to protect the land, but also a battle to protect the most sacred values: courage, love, and the power of unity. But what happened that fateful night? How did a small community defeat a seemingly invincible force? And you? Where did you find this story? From a random glance or a friend's recommendation? Leave your answer in the comments. And if you think this story is worth spreading, click subscribe today. Because tomorrow, we're going to tell you a special story. A story that will change the way you look at life. The Black Hollow Road Station, located in a desolate valley, is a last refuge for those on the run from the past or looking for a new start. Here, Ethan Kane, a man who has seen the darkness of the battlefield, lives quietly as a station manager. But that peace does not last long. One afternoon at sunset, when the sky turned blood red, two large motorcycles rushed in, breaking the silence. Two men from the Wild Fangs gang entered, their leather jackets covered in tattoos that suggested danger. They did not come just for dinner. The taller one, nicknamed Snake, banged on the counter, demanding that Ethan pay protection fees, or else the station would turn into ashes. Ethan, tall but calm, looked straight into Snake's eyes. Without a trace of fear, he put down his cup of coffee, his voice deep but firm. "Do you think I will surrender?" Snake sneered. But before he could say more, Ethan's gaze stopped him. It was not the gaze of an ordinary man. It was the gaze of a warrior who had looked death in the eye, steadfast, uncompromising, and mysterious. The people in the bar, including the long-haul drivers and the locals, watched in silence. The air was frozen. Ethan took a step forward, his strong hands on the counter. He didn't need to shout or look intimidating. His presence, firm, made Snake and his men flinch. "Black Hollow doesn't need protection," he said slowly. "If you want to cause trouble, think again. This is no place to fool around." Snake's pride was hurt, and he shouted, "You'll regret it." But as he turned to leave, he didn't dare look back. Their convoy roared out of the station, leaving the tension in the air still hanging. In an instant, Ethan had saved not only himself, but also the small community of Black Hollow. But he knew that this battle had only just begun. In the darkness of the distant streets, the Wild Fangs were gathering their forces. And Ethan knew that he could not ignore it, because sometimes those who live in the light must stand up to dispel the darkness. Ethan Kane stood silently on the porch of the station, his eyes on the distant horizon. The cold night wind carried the metallic scent of impending rain, but his heart was filled with unease. The wheels of the Wild Fangs had departed, but their silhouettes still lurked in the night. Ethan knew that a great storm was approaching, and this time it would not stop at threats. he decided not to stand idly by. The next morning, Ethan gathered the people he trusted most in town. Sheriff Maria Torres, who had been devoted to protecting Black Hollow for years, appeared first. She seemed determined, agreeing as soon as Ethan mentioned the threat. "If we do nothing, this place will become their playground," she said, her eyes full of determination. The small but united Black Hollow community quickly joined in. Tommy, a long-haul driver who had served in the military, took the lead in driving. Lucy, the owner of the small coffee shop, volunteered to help with food and supplies. Everyone, no matter how small, was willing to contribute, knowing that the survival of the town depended on it. Ethan left no detail untouched. He coordinated with federal agents through old contacts, implementing a plan to protect the rest stop. Surveillance cameras were installed everywhere, from the porch to the hidden corners. Concrete barriers were erected, forming a solid wall. Even the trucks were turned into mobile fortresses, ready to block the way of any trespassers. The evenings at Black Hollow became training time. Veterans taught the villagers self-defense, from using flashlights as weapons to being alert for dangerous situations. Meanwhile, Ethan spent every hour analyzing every possible scenario. Their enemies, he knew, were more than just rowdy thugs. The Wild Fangs were a venomous snake, with deep connections in the criminal underworld. But amid the tension, Ethan also sensed something precious. The people who had once been strangers were now a big family, united by a common goal. They were no longer weak, vulnerable individuals. They were becoming a strong community, ready to stand up for themselves. One late night, as Ethan sat alone with his cold coffee, Maria Torres approached him. "When do you think they'll be back?" she asked. Ethan was silent for a long moment, his eyes distant. "Not long," he replied. "And next time, they'll be more vengeful. But we'll be ready." Outside, the sky was pitch black. But in Black Hollow, the lights from the rest stops flickered, illuminating each determined face. Tonight, they are lights in the darkness. Small, but steadfast, ready to brave the coming storm. A week later, the air in Black Hollow was heavy, as if the town were holding its breath. Ethan Kane knew that the Wild Fangs were not an enemy to be trifled with, and that this silence was only a prelude to a terrible storm. The nights were long. The lights at the rest stop were kept on, and the guards took turns on duty, keeping an eye on the dark shadows on the road. As expected, the Wild Fangs returned that night, but this time, it was not just the loud, big bikes. From above, through the surveillance cameras, Ethan saw a convoy of heavy trucks and shiny black SUVs barreling toward Black Hollow like bloodthirsty predators. At the head of the convoy was a man no one in Black Hollow had ever seen before. Hector Cruz, a notorious drug lord rumored to run a criminal network that stretched across the border. Hector stepped out of his car with a smug look on his face, as if everything was in his hands. "This little rest stop will be ours by dawn," Hector said loudly, his voice ringing like a verdict. Snake, the leader of the Wild Fangs, stepped up to Hector, his face gloating. He jerked his chin toward the rest stop, where the lights illuminated each determined face. "They're hiding inside. One hit, and it's all over." But they were wrong. Ethan stood in the center of the rest stop, his gaze calm but determined. He had prepared for this moment, not with brute force, but with tactics beyond anything Hector or Snake could have imagined. Together with Maria Torres and a team of federal agents, Ethan had planned not just to defend, but to trap a major criminal organization. As their convoy entered the rest stop, Ethan gave the signal. A series of barriers closed automatically, cutting off the only escape route. The loudspeaker system blared Maria's resolute voice. "Hector Cruz, Snake, you are surrounded. All your actions have been recorded. If you do not surrender immediately, the consequences will be unimaginable." Hector laughed, a cold laugh echoing in the night. "Do you think these childish tricks will stop me?" He ordered his men to attack. The trucks began to roar forward, but then, suddenly, from the darkness, a series of powerful headlights turned on. Federal special forces appeared from all directions, weapons ready, quickly locking down the entire area. "We don't need to stop you," Ethan said from atop a makeshift watchtower. "You just need to take the bait." The Wild Fangs were thrown into panic. The trucks were blocked by sturdy concrete barriers. Some tried to escape, but surveillance helicopters watched their every move from above. The federal agents raided each car, arresting each gang member. Meanwhile, Maria Torres and her team quickly gathered evidence from the surveillance cameras and listening devices Ethan had secretly installed over the past week. Hector, realizing he had been tricked, roared in anger. But even he could not escape the trap that had been set. 2 federal agents escorted him out of the SUV, and for the first time that night, he lost the smug smile on his face. "You are wrong to think we are weak," Ethan said, standing face to face with Hector. "Black Hollow is not just a place. It is a community. And this community does not accept people like you." As the car carrying Hector and Snake drove away under heavy guard, a light rain fell, washing away the dust of the darkness. At the rest stop, the Black Hollow residents stood together under the lights, tears in their eyes, but relief in their hearts. They had won, not just against the gang, but against their fears. Ethan, tired as he was, stood still, watching the sky slowly clear. He knew that this battle was not just about protecting a bus stop, but about keeping the faith that light can always overcome darkness, as long as people dare to stand up. The sun rose from the horizon, casting its first warm rays over Black Hollow, bringing with it a new breath of peace. The station, once a place of tension and danger, was now as calm as if the storm had never passed. But those who remained knew that this peace was no accident. It was paid for by courage, unity, and unwavering faith. News of the successful raid spread quickly. Hector Cruz and the Wild Fangs were arrested with full evidence, taking down a key link in the criminal network. Federal, local, and even the press praised the smart, bold plan led by Ethan Kane and the Black Hollow community. But for the people here, the greatest victory was not the destruction of a gang, but the rediscovery of their hidden strength. Ethan sat at a small wooden table in Lucy's cafe, looking out the window where the light fell on the concrete barriers that still stood as a reminder. Maria Torres walked in, placing a cup of hot coffee in front of him. "You did it, Ethan," she said, her voice both gentle and proud. "Not only did you protect Black Hollow, but you also gave hope." Ethan smiled slightly. He didn't feel like a hero. He was just a link in the chain that held everyone together. The veteran drivers, the locals, the police, and the agents, all of them had come together as one. "We did it," he said, emphasizing the "we" as a statement. As time passed, Black Hollow not only returned to normalcy, but it became a symbol. Other bus stops in the area began to learn from the way the people here organized and united. the feds used Ethan's plan as a model for how they would deal with organized crime. Long-haul drivers who passed through Black Hollow told their stories. A story of a small but strong community fighting back against the darkness. For Ethan, victory was not an end, but a beginning. He began holding regular meetings to help those struggling with their darkness. At the rest stop, wooden benches were set up under the trees, where stories were shared and wounds were healed. The rest stop had once been a transit point, now a center of hope. One afternoon, as the sunset reddened the sky, Lucy asked Ethan, "Do you think it's over?" Ethan looked away, his eyes no longer heavy. "No one knows what the future will bring," he said. "But I know one thing. As long as we're together, no darkness will last forever." Outside, a gentle breeze blows, carrying the scent of resurrection. And on the distant hill, under the darkening sky, Black Hollow continues to stand, not just a way station, but a living testament that light can always triumph over darkness. If people are brave enough to face and fight, the story of Black Hollow is not only a journey of a small community against the darkness, but also a powerful reminder that within each of us, there is a light big enough to light up the night, as long as we dare to face it, dare to unite, and dare to believe in something better. Ethan Kane and the people here teach us that, no matter how difficult life may bring, courage, perseverance, and love will always be the torch to light the way. We want to send our sincere thanks to you, who accompanied this story. It is your listening that makes every word, every moment more meaningful. Let this story be a reminder that no matter where we are or what we are facing, we always have the power to change and take control of our destiny. If you feel the power of unity, courage, and light in this story, please give it a like to spread the positive message. Share to help this story touch more hearts and help people around you find hope in their own lives. And don't forget to leave a comment on this question. What is your light when you face darkness? The journey of Black Hollow has only just begun, and we are preparing the next stories full of meaning, drama, and deep emotions that will not be able to take your eyes off. Hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of the magic. We will see you in the next part, where light, courage, and awareness will continue to lead the way. Are you ready?